everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Dustin Peed. I'm so thankful to be with you today. And today we're going to wrap up this series on confessions of each Enneagram type. And I'm super pumped for my guest today, good friend of mine, all-around creative guru, Johnny Taylor is in the house with us today. How you doing, Johnny?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you, man?
I'm doing good. If you can't tell already, Johnny is our Enneagram 5. I should have done
That
it where
obvious?
it had been like I should have done it where like I never say the person's number, and
Yeah,
then at the end everybody has to guess. All right, you've heard it all. What do you
right,
think? What
right.
number do you think this person is?
Yeah, I
Um,
think I think the only thing that would give it away is maybe like uh, the episode title.
the episode title might. I mean, I
Yeah,
might, or I could just do like Confessions of an
like
Enneagram. This emoji.
you get it. Yeah.
So anyway, I'm super pumped to have Johnny here. He's a good friend of mine, has been for several years. And so before we get started, I want to remind you that we're here to help creatives know themselves, their process, and their team so they can create greater things together. If you're listening on audio podcast platforms, thanks for tuning in. I'd love for you to rate and review this podcast with 5 stars. That would be super helpful. And if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit the like button, the thumbs up, the subscribe, and ring the bell for any time that we post content or go live. Then you will be the first to know about it. Also want to remind you that on social media, you can find me at Dustin Peed, last name Pead. I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, the Twitters, all the things. And then if you'd like to talk to me more about anything that we have talked about on any of these episodes, you can find me at dustinpeed.com. Okay, I think that's everything we got. So, Johnny, the way we've been starting these, like I mentioned before we started recording, is by sharing a little bit of just kind of oversight into your Enneagram number before we really dive in. And so,
Hmm.
where we've been leaning into that is with our friend Jackie Brewster, who Johnny, were you there when she came to visit us at Cross? I don't think you were there yet.
I don't think I was there.
Yeah. But we've gleaned a lot from her over the years, and Johnny has been into and studying the Enneagram as long, if not longer, than I have, and so super insightful. Obviously filled with knowledge as an Enneagram 5. But Jackie Brewster is a Enneagram coach. And a good friend of ours, and she has come out with several different products. One of the things she come out with is these Enneagram Essentials, 125 cards for self-awareness and connection. It kind of looks like a little game,
Mhm.
honestly. Let's see if I take my face away, it'll focus on it. Maybe there it is.
Maybe.
Cool.
Oh, yep. There it is.
So yeah, so it's super cool. So when you open it up, it has like a little all these different sections of cards inside of it, just basic Enneagram stuff, different awareness, insights, relationships, all those types of things that are fun to dive into. But she always starts or she has this thing right here at the beginning that kind of summarizes each Enneagram type with a little paragraph. And so for each of these episodes we've been reading Jackie Brewster's kind of summary of the Enneagram type. So let's dive right in here. For Enneagram 5s, the investigative thinker. 5s long to be capable and competent. They are imaginative, intelligent, witty, sentimental, and private people. So Johnny's loving this right now. Super,
Hmm.
super private platform.
Yeah. After
Just
we
me and
read
you.
this, we're done, right? That's it.
Yeah, this is
I
it.
just
When
agree.
we read
Yeah.
this, you're going to nod in agreement, and then we're done.
Mhm.
They often have a range of knowledge in several different subjects. I would also add to that sometimes useful knowledge, sometimes useless knowledge. They desire to be undisturbed by others and do not like to need others' help. Because of this, 5s tend to be more introverted and require large amounts of alone time to recharge. That's that last statement is one that I use the most, Johnny, when I'm telling people about like what to look for in an Enneagram, how I can kind of
Uh-huh.
spot an Enneagram 5 is usually they're the ones that have the shortest battery life for being around other people. Even if
Yep.
they are a social 5, like I know you're a social 5, it's still there's like, okay, I'm gonna go in my office or my room and I'm gonna lock the door. I like how there's a door behind you right now and it's shut. And it's just like, you know
Yeah.
what? This is
Yeah.
me time. And then I'm also
Yeah.
going to get on a podcast.
Yeah.
So do you relate with kind of that overall investigative thinker overview that Jackie had for us today?
Oh, yeah, 100% that. Just like if I had to describe myself, I would not think about it that hard and just copy and paste that and like send it. Like that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, if someone asked me about Johnny Taylor as well, that would be the best description I could give them. He's so spot on. He's all of those things and more. Well, let's dive right in, Johnny. I want to know to start off what's something most people wouldn't know about you as an Enneagram Five. Not necessarily you personally, Johnny. Like, oh, you
Yeah.
wouldn't know that I have 9 toes, but which you might. I don't know if you do or not, but just
Uh,
uniquely to you as a five.
yeah, I think one thing that people often don't understand about Enneagram fives is that we do have feelings. We feel things. We're not just all here um,
Yeah.
in the logic world. And I know we're not very good at expressing our feelings. And why I think that is that I think everyone almost has like an emotional well. And some people have shallower wells than others. And once that well is filled up and overflows, that's when we see that emotion expressed. But I think Enneagram fives typically have deeper wells. So it takes us longer, more emotion before we overflow and show that. But it definitely is there. We definitely do feel
Hmm.
just as strongly and as deeply as any other Enneagram type.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we can see that. And we're going to get into wings a little bit more later, but
Mhm.
fives being so close to what I would refer to as the most emotional number on the Enneagram chart, fours, myself. Obviously, there's going to be some times of that stronger emotional pull on the four side of things. It just takes you, but you also equally have that innate five essence of really processing things through sometimes
Mhm.
before you kind of allow the emotions to take over, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So like I like always like to know why I feel why like what I feel before I will express it, or before I feel comfortable expressing it, or talking about it with others. Um, it's just like it's almost like a process. Like I need to know why this is happening before I can like really, I guess, speak about it or communicate it to others.
Yeah, for sure. Let's put on the Enneagram five colored glasses for a second and
Okay.
help us understand how you as a five view the world around you. If I had a pair of glasses that if I
Mm-hmm.
magically put them on, then all of a sudden I see the world like an Enneagram five. How what would that look like? How do you see the world?
Mm-hmm. I feel like the color of the lens would be the word why. Like
Mm.
why is this the way it is? Why is this happening? Why does this cause this? We're constantly asking why of the world, constantly trying to break things apart into smaller and smaller chunks of information that we can understand and then like almost reassemble into something usable in our everyday lives. And that's kind of like our constant search is taking more and more information, figuring out why things are the way they are, why things work the way they do, so that we can better operate in the world.
Yeah, man, that's really good. And I would say too, it's probably less I mean maybe, I don't know. Let me ask you, is it less why in terms of like with people and more why with like things and kind of how they work and that type of thing, or is it equally like I wonder why a person acts that way, or is it equally that, or is it more so like I wonder what how stars are made, you know, or
Yeah,
where that
yeah.
can, you know, is it kind of equally why, or is it more, is it heavily like on people versus, I guess, non-human
Hmm.
factors?
Yeah, I imagine that it would really, at this point, begin to depend more on the individual, like on the Enneagram 5.
Mm,
But I know for me, like it's kind of like this just general, like I want to know why people think the way they do, act the way they do, but also how is a star made?
yeah,
Like I want to know everything on about everything. But
yeah,
I would imagine that with other fives, like maybe specific interests might take precedent over other areas of information.
yeah. No, that makes sense for sure. So as I've been doing these interviews, I recognize that everybody has something that they really love, or at least a couple things that they really love about being associated with their Enneagram number, and there's a couple things that frustrate them about being associated with their
Hmm.
Enneagram number. So let's start with the love. What do you love the most about being an Enneagram 5?
Let's see. I think like I don't know if I could imagine not having the passion and desire to learn things, like having that innate. Um, because I see so many people who like it's like they don't even know how to use Google or YouTube. I'm like, you can do this if you just go search for that information. But I realize it's not natural for other people, and so I feel like that's one thing um, that I enjoy about being an Enneagram 5 is that I feel like no matter what situation I am in, I'm going to have tools and resources to understand more. Whereas a lot of people was just like, oh, I don't get it, I'm stuck.
Hmm. Would you say that that is just kind of like a maybe this is just me probing a little bit more. Is it more of a desire to be self-sustaining and not having to depend on others, like we read about in Jackie's kind of overview?
Yeah, I can weigh, and it's not even that desire to not be dependent on others. I feel like isn't um, because we want to be like reliant on ourselves. It's
Mm,
because we don't feel comfortable taking up space. We don't feel comfortable like maybe like being a burden on somebody else. So we want to
yeah.
take it all on ourselves. So like I feel like that pops up in some areas of my life um, where I'm trying to figure out something that personally affects me. So like let's say for instance taxes. If I'm like trying to figure out how to do my taxes, I'm going to be way less like I'm not going to ask for advice or help. I'm going to do all the research on my own. But if I were to be helping somebody else, then I'd be more likely to seek outside help and information. And that
Hmm,
I feel like it plays all back into like not wanting to take up other people's resources because so um, we're so conservative with our own that we
yeah.
almost like project that onto other people. Like I wouldn't want somebody taking my time, my energy, my resources. So I don't feel comfortable asking somebody else to do that for me.
Man, that's really interesting. All right, so let's flip flop this for a second. That's what you love about being an Enneagram 5. What frustrates you the most about being an Enneagram 5?
Let's see. Probably um, my like inability, and I use that word like lightly, not like it's impossible, but like it's not inherent. But my inability to just like be present in a situation and not have to analyze and break things down. Like it's extremely difficult for me to just experience something for what
Mm,
it is.
hmm. Man, that's tough. All right, let's get into some rapid fire. Some of these might be super easy and kind of like heavy, lopsided for you as an Enneagram 5, but I'm going to ask them anyway, especially this first one. All right, so are you thoughtful or whimsical?
I feel like I definitely lean towards the thoughtful. There's definitely like those rare occasions where I am a little more whimsical,
Mm,
but typically 90% of the time I'm thinking through every action, every word, everything I'm going to do.
yeah, I like it. Are you selfish?
Hmm. I think I wouldn't necessarily use the word selfish. I would maybe say self-preserving, which
Mm,
is like almost like I guess a more positive way of saying selfish. Um, but it's not like I'm like necessarily just hoarding things for the sake of hoarding them, or self-absorbed. It's like almost like a realistic like if I keep spinning myself, like I'm gonna burn out kind of selfishness. Like it's more of knowing
mhm.
myself, and it may come across to others more selfish.
Yeah, I got you. This next question came out of one of the Christian Enneagram kind of coaches and authors and speakers. Um, and when we're looking at the Enneagram through the lens of the gospel, right, which we do, they will often look at it and say there are some signature sins, or there is a signature sin, with each Enneagram number. Um,
Hmm.
and I don't really, I don't know how accurate these are all the time. I know for me, mine is super accurate, and so, like for me, it's envy, like a super envious of a lot of other people's like way of life and what they have, and their freedoms and all these types of different things. So my initial question was going to be, what do you envy? Which why as I would still like to know that. But I think as
Hmm.
I'm looking at your card here, it says that the signature sin of a five is greed.
Hmm.
How do you see that playing out, if at all?
Yeah. It's I definitely see it play out in my life. It's something like I have to be aware of, um, because it can show up in every area of life. It's not just necessarily like material greed. It can
Mhm.
also be like I want to um, like hoard other people's time and affections. I always used to tell like my close friends that like I almost like collected them as trophies, and like I wanted them on my shelf. Like I
Yeah.
don't want other people. Like I feel weird when other people have access. So it's definitely something like I have to check in
Mm.
myself. Like am I closing up? Am I shutting off resources? Um, am I trying to hoard, or am I living a little more carefree with my hands a little more open, if you will?
Yeah. That's really good. Yeah, I feel like most of the signature sins aren't necessarily there in um, in the, I would say, not all of the signature sins, I think, for Enneagram numbers are there in the most literal sense that
Yeah.
we often think about. Because I wouldn't necessarily uh, characterize you as a greedy person, but I certainly can understand, like, as I get to know you, like, okay, these are some things that you kind of hold on to
Hmm.
tightly and that you desire most, kind of any other thing. So, is there anything as far as envy is concerned? Do you envy anything? And if so, what?
Yeah, I think, and definitely like having a dominant four wing, I feel like a little closer to that. Like I definitely like find myself envying other people's like lifestyles or level of success, or their abilities. Is one thing. I guess as an Enneagram five, I'm like, I wish I could do that too. I wish I knew how to do that because that makes them more capable. So I do find myself envying in those categories, but also envying like people who I view as more stable, like or in more stable situations where they're not as concerned with their relational or material, emotional, spiritual resources being drained more easily.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I feel that. Last rapid fire question: what do you thrive on?
What do I thrive on? I feel like I thrive in areas where I can where I have space for myself. And that, when I say space, I mean that like in every sense of the word, um, like not just like alone time, but like the freedom that comes with it, knowing that I'm not going to have outside expectations put on me that will interrupt it. Having
Yeah,
that space where I can really like settle in to a topic that I want to become more proficient at.
yeah. Wow, I understand that. So you talked a little bit about your wing earlier. You talked about it being which one is your predominant wing. I want to get into
Hmm.
that, but before I do, I usually kind of like to preface. I know you know this, but for our viewers and listeners, the wings in the Enneagram world are like arms. We each have, unless there's a handicap that you can't help, that each of us have two arms or two hands. Um,
Right.
and we use both of them. There's just one that's more dominant than the other. And
Mhm.
so your wings in Enneagram, if we're talking to Johnny here, who's an Enneagram 5, his wings are going to be on either side of the number of 5. So on one side of the number 5, you have the number 4, and on the other side of the number 5, you have the number 6. And so just as we, like I said, just as we have both of those numbers, we have both of those. Everybody uses both wings. It's just one is more predominant than other. And Johnny, you said earlier that for you, your more predominant wing is wing 4. What does that look like for you? How does that play out in your life?
It looks confusing most of the time because it's like he, like I borrow like a lot of like the feeling side from that four wing. So it's like I do feel very deeply, and I feel I'm more in tune with my emotions than most fives, like a five wing six would be. Um, and that adds a lot of confusion because then it's like, which one do I trust um,
Hmm.
more, or having to like process it on a deeper level to feel satisfied
Hmm. Yeah.
is big for me. But also, like I see a lot of like the positive aspects of that four wing too, um, like creativity, for instance, or just viewing the world through a little more of a magical lens,
Hmm.
um, where it's not just all black and white, but there is a little more of that color added in. I think
Yeah.
I also pull from my four wing.
I dig that. Um, we talked earlier about some things that frustrate you as an Enneagram 5, and one of the things that Enneagram 4s feel quite a bit is, incomplete or defective in
Mm-hmm.
some areas. And so because you wing 4, I want to ask you as well, in what ways, if any, do you feel defective or incomplete?
Yeah, um, I think definitely like it almost feels like I'm handicapped in the ability to like communicate how I feel,
Mm.
what I'm thinking. Um, it's almost like it's like this, I guess, the feelingness of being misunderstood more prominent. So that's something that like I feel like I lack being able to show people who I am.
Hmm. Yeah, I see that. All right, couple more questions. How do you best get along with people? I know, we've talked a little bit on this series so far, just about kind of um, the Enneagram subtypes, and one of the
Mm-hmm.
subtypes is a social. So, as a 5, you can be a social, a self-preservation, or one to one. Which I think a lot of people, when they think about Enneagram 5, they automatically assume that they're self-preservation, because they're very closed off and they're more introverted.
Right.
But you, as a social 5, you're obviously way more extroverted. You're obviously comfortable doing something like this, and
Mm-hmm.
I've seen you hang out and, with large crowds and be okay with that and really kind of thrive off that. So really, day to day, how do you best get along with other people as an Enneagram 5?
Yeah, definitely uh, communicating clear boundaries with other people. Um, because I have a certain amount of energy, and I realize that, and I have come to a place where I'm able to spend it. Like I feel more comfortable spending that social energy, um, but I also have to place boundaries around people
Hmm.
and like remind them like I'm not like a lot of other people where I can just keep going and being around others. Like I have to take time um, for myself to recharge. So keeping that boundary in place really helps me interact with others, but also being able to have a period of like observation of people before I interact with them, like getting to know someone a
Okay.
little bit before like I actually have to get to know them. If that makes
Yeah.
sense,
Yeah.
um, also goes a long way.
That sounds a bit wing 6-ish of you.
Mm-hmm.
Six, 6 is, kind of being very, um, security minded, careful who they open up around, things like that. So
Yeah.
I could definitely see kind of that other, if we talked about the dominant hand to the predominant hand, I can kind of see the other hand coming into play there a little bit. Last question for you. This is kind of a big, broad question. You can answer it however you'd like, but what is the most
Okay.
important thing to you as an Enneagram 5?
Hmm. Let's see. I think probably security,
Hmm,
um, which I know that sounds really six of me to say,
it does.
but I think when it comes down to it, all humans are searching for that security.
Agreed.
Um, and the Enneagram just shows, the different ways we look for it.
Hmm.
Really. So I think deep down, that's what I care most about, is feeling secure and stable. But I go about getting that is through acquiring knowledge. Um, so, like, I guess if I had to answer it more like Enneagram 5 specific, is the thing I care most about is being able to just handle whatever is thrown at me, like having enough information to
Mm,
to not be surprised or caught off guard, or to get to the point where I have to depend on somebody else,
yeah, I like
which
that.
is ultimately security. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I
security
think it's
through
different too.
information.
Yeah, I think it's different too. I think it's not so much safety,
Yeah.
right? As much as
Hmm.
it is assurance.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel that. Is there anything else, Johnny, that we didn't cover that you would want people to know about Enneagram 5 before we kind of close this out?
I feel like there might be one thing, that, like the level, like the numbers we go into when we're like integrated or disintegrated with
Mhm.
ourselves. So, like, I think one thing that can be surprising for people, specifically with fives, is like we go into that, like the more seven aspects when we start to disintegrate. Um,
Hmm.
when we're in those more like stressed seasons of life. But then when we become like more secure, more healthy, more integrated with ourselves, we tend to pick up those positive eight traits,
Yeah.
where like we can be like super assertive and stick up for ourselves, which I feel like
Yeah.
are two like almost opposite extremes that can be off-putting to people.
Yeah. A lot more confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that for sure. So what Johnny's referring to there, we've talked about it in a few other previous episodes. Is in the Enneagram, you will line to another number in stress, and you will line to another number. You're aligned to the unhealthy side of a number, of a different number in stress, and you'll line to a healthy side of another number in growth or health.
Hmm.
And so for fives, it's seven, and you go to seven, the unhealthy side of sevens and stress, and the
Yeah.
healthy side of eight and growth. And so, yeah, I see that playing out for sure in your life as well. But I want to tell people before we wrap this up, just kind of where some of these resources are coming from. We talked about Jackie Brewster at the beginning of this. If you want to follow along with her online or anywhere books are sold, enneagramwithjb.com. She has a couple different really great books. Her newest one is on marriage. It's really great. My wife and I are reading it right now. You can follow her on Instagram or anywhere else at Enneagram with JB. Same thing as her website. Someone else that we've learned a ton from before is Beth McCord. She is over at yourenneagramcoach.com. Really great at using the Enneagram through the lens of the gospel, and it's super, super helpful for us. And then the last one, if you're brand new to Enneagram world and you're just trying to figure out what these numbers mean and how it all fits and how it connects you to kind of understanding who God made you better, I would highly recommend The Road Back to You as a book by Ian Morgan Cron, kind of like the modern father of the Enneagram movement. Yeah, I think it's everything. Johnny, thank you so much for taking time to do this, man. I think it was a good, strong ending to our series on the Confessions of an Enneagram, and so I really appreciate you being here for that.
Hey man, thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Thanks everybody for watching and tuning in and listening. We'll talk to you next time on the podcast.